side, and this is where we talk politics and current affairs. We call it the Eagles Outlook. You might want to call it the political crossfire. You might want to call it, the different names that you want to give to it. But yes, it's a serious prog show, right? And it also calls for some seriousness because the matters discussed in this very segment of the Eagles Morning Risers Breakfast Show is one that is of serious significance and critical to the growth and development of our dear country, Nigeria. Right? My name is Uduak Daniel.
And I am Omohefe Peace Osemere. Good morning to you once again, and thank you so much for joining us at this time.
Right. Well, it does feel good to note the fact that we have a conversation that we'll be looking at. I mean, it's not just a matter that concerns the Nigerian shores, but we're looking at the African continent, right? We are trying to examine factors responsible for democratic failure in Africa. And time without number, we've had a guest come in on this program to talk about the fact that we are practicing democracy, but it's quasi-democracy, or if you like, quasi-federal, the federal system of government and all of that, different types of conversation. If we're practicing true federalism, which a guest said there's nothing like true federalism. Federalism is federalism, right? There's nothing true about it. That we've just been the ones that has been refusing to indeed accede to the indicators of what characterizes federalism, right? But then we want to examine democracy, not just here in Nigeria. Just recently, we've had Mr. President go outside the shores of Nigeria, reach out there to adding his voice on matters that concern the African continent, right, and all of that. We saw Shatima too has also added his voice, saying that the president, by doing this, is indeed setting Africa as well as Nigeria on the map. But what map are we really setting ourselves on? Global map. Okay. If we keep experiencing a very germane failure in democracy, but some would say that if we were to compare this just before 1999 or even during the 1999 era up before now, it's not in compare in any way.
Right.
But we have our guest who's going to be adding his voice in the discourse this morning. He's in the person of Dr. Ibrahim Shatambaya. He's a public policy expert, and in Africa where we will not be having any barriers in terms of how we mute from one country to the other. But then the continent has experienced numerous challenges, including corruption, poverty, insecurity, or governance concern. That's talking about this president now, has attributed democratic need for Africa, right? Poverty, insecurity is all part of it. He also spoke about and looked at this what democracy in Africa, democracy in Nigeria. They one and the same.
At the numerous reasons. In the first place, Africa is it's a continent that is considered to be one of the most backward across the globe. Secondly, it is a continent that has been bedeviled by scores of military rule, particularly in the past. And it was equally a continent where there was aggressive campaign for the transition to civilian-oriented democratic systems, which the continent actually struggled to adopt. But with time, we were able to actually overcome all the hurdles and find ourselves mainstreamed into democratic systems and democratic processes as they were. It didn't stop there. Africa has equally been very notorious as regards bad governance, if you like, which has dovetailed into what we may refer to as democratic backsliding, democratic reversals, democratic failure, and a lot of many nomenclature that has been associated with failure of democracy in Africa as it is at the moment. And there are a lot of factors that could be accredited to this situation that we have found ourselves in the continent. Democracy has, if for nothing, worsened the rules of the people in Africa. When the military was in charge, when the military actually reigned supreme across the length and breadth of Africa, Africans felt that the level of mismanagement, the level of bad governance, the level of insensitivity of leadership was so much that we needed an alternative to actually weather the storm of lack of development in Africa. And our elites actually felt that in collaboration with their external allies, felt that democracy could be a perfect solution to the situation in which we found ourselves then. But now that we have adopted democracy, it seems as if democracy is even worse than where we are coming from. I'm talking about the various systems that actually operated, various systems of government that operated before the adoption of democracy. And I keep emphasizing adoption because it is one of the major problems that we are facing in Africa today. What we did was that we copied a system and felt that we could adopt it hook, line, and sinker without making certain adjustments that will actually suit our indigenous orientations, our indigenous values, our indigenous systems. And this has heralded a situation whereby the system has failed to work completely. The system has failed to work completely. As we can see in Nigeria, nothing seems to be working. Insecurity has skyrocketed, poverty, corruption, name it. Things that were hitherto alien to some systems in Africa have now become very, very common in our system. And all these are associated with the adoption of a foreign system that we felt was going to work perfectly for us. Right. And what Africa should have done, what countries in Africa should have done, were to see areas where the Western-oriented democratic system could actually be adjusted to suit our indigenous peculiarities. We did not do that, and today we are in the front burner of facing all these crises that our countries are going through. That is number one. Number two, institutions that were able to actually serve as foundation for the smooth flourishing of democracy. When you talk about political parties, when you talk about civil society organizations and other such institutions, you discover that these institutions are weak. They are not founded in a way that they could actually carry out the expected roles that they are supposed to discharge in strengthening democracy, in ensuring that democracy is actually rooted in the majority of the people of various countries in Africa. And therefore, these systems that are supposed to be populist systems, these systems that are supposed to actually anchor the needs and preferences of the people, have become institutions that are isolated and controlled and are manipulated by the elite, who actually are in the hem of affairs in these various countries. And this is a major problem.
All right.
When you say military...
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Please go ahead, Dr. Shantabaya. You can just quickly, summarize your thoughts.
So lack of institutionalization of these institutions is another serious problem that our democracy is facing. We have this cankerworm of corruption and self-centeredness of our leaders. Political elites in this country, including those that actually struggle for the country, for our various countries to transit from military rule to civilian democracy. We thought at that point that they were doing it to actually improve the loss of the people, but now we realize that they were doing it on account of the fact that they felt it would serve them better to actually enrich themselves and their associates. So corruption is a major issue which our elites in this country have actually plunged our respective countries into. And with corruption, there is little or nothing we could achieve.
Right.
We have the problem of insecurity. When the military actually reigned supreme in many of our countries, our security situation was not better. Now we have a group of individuals that lack the capacity, that do not have the initiative, that do not have the interest in is actually ensuring that our respective territories in Africa are actually secure. In fact, some of them are even feeding facts from the situation of insecurity in these countries. I had an interview yesterday, one of the senators in the person of Adams Oshomole, and he was laying claim to the fact that the insecurity in the north, particularly issues of banditry and kidnapping in the north, is not unconnected to activities of mining, in which certain retired generals and other political elites are directly involved by way of providing arms and ammunition to scores of individuals that are expected to provide security for their external collaborators who are in the country to actually illegally mine these mineral resources. It is these arms and ammunition that is being used by some of these groups to actually perpetrate insecurity in the western Nigeria, in northwestern Nigeria, country, right, which dovetails into kidnapping, banditry, and what have you. So insecurity is another major issue that has actually negatively impacted on democracy in this country. We can go on and on and on. So many factors have actually contributed in diminishing the fortunes of democracy in Africa.
All right, Dr. Shatta Mbaya, thank you so much for that submission. Because we are not focusing solely on Nigeria, right, we by extension would like to look at Africa as a continent. I mean, it's okay for you to have registered some of the antecedents of democratic failure in Africa, ranging from corruption to poverty and perhaps insecurity, as it were, in Nigeria. Now, many African countries actually experienced military rule, one-party rule, and other forms of authoritarianism, and all of this is actually after independence. We see the case of, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, and we understand that the deadline for the exit of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso from the Economic Community of West African States is set to expire today, and this actually creates some sort of uncertainty within the region. And in recent times, observers and analysts just like you, some have come out to say that the reason why we have these cracks, these loopholes in the African continent is as a result of external, undue external interference. How do we not juxtapose, that external, undue interference with corruption, security, and poverty rocking the African continent?
Yes, you see, external interference is one key factor that has actually manifested in many of these things that we are seeing today. Issues of corruption, for example, if you take corruption, directly or indirectly, the external partners of our elites in power are involved directly or indirectly in corruption. After all, the boutiques from corruption are being launched in many of these countries that appear to be are considered to be watchdogs of corruption across the globe. But by virtue of the fact that the people in power, the elite in power in many countries in Africa, are actually doing their bidding in such a way that they are giving their countries undue and unnecessary advantage over the resources of their respective countries, this foreign collaborator will just turn a blind eye to the corruption that is taking place in many of these countries. And even where they speak, even where they attempt to speak, they are only being platonic. They are not being really serious. They continue to hobnob with these political elites that are actually perpetrating high levels of corruption against their country and against their people. Now, when you look at what is happening in some of the renegade West African countries like Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, you discover that it is this undue foreign influence to which the military in this country have realized that it's not taking their country anywhere. Despite the high level of collaboration between and among these African countries, some of these African countries, and Western allies such as United States of America, France, United Kingdom, and what have you, the wars in some of these African countries have actually become compounded. And directly or indirectly, some of the institutions, military institutions in this country actually came to a conclusion that the best way to approach the challenges that some of their countries are facing is to actually cut off ties directly with these Western allies that have become canker worm on these countries. If you take security, for example, these countries that we are talking about, the renegade countries, are countries that were previously colonized by France, and they have existing defense and security pact with their former colonial master, which is France, and there has been high level of presence of military officials from French military officials in all of these countries. But despite the high level of advancement in technology and sophistication of the military of France, insecurity has remained one of the major issues in many of these countries. And if you look at it critically, you will ask, what is the point in continuing this relationship since the security situation of these countries have not been improved? Economically, when you look at it, you discover that France has actually been trying on the resources of this country to their exclusive advantage, at the disadvantage of the population of these various countries. Many of the economic problems that the people are facing and the country is facing is not unconnected with the dominance that France has over the resources of these countries, such that the resources is only benefiting France, its political elite, at the expense of the generality of the people, which indirectly contributes to insecurity in these particular countries. So the military institution actually came to the conclusion that the continuous relationship with these foreign powers is no longer to the benefit of their people, and therefore it is better for them to actually oust the collaborators of this foreign power, that is the civilian administration, and actually mainstream themselves into the political process with a view to cutting out ties completely with these Western capitalist countries and forging new alliances with foreign countries that they feel will serve the interests of their countries better. So this is what is manifesting in these countries. And if you take a look at all other African countries where there has been relationship between countries in Africa and foreign capitalist countries, particularly United States of America, US, Germany, and the rest, you discover that it is a relationship of imbalance, an imbalance that has been historically rooted right from the days of transatlantic slave trade to the era of legitimate trade, to the era of colonialism, and now to the era of neo-colonialism, in which in all these epochs African countries have been put in a disadvantage, and therefore in any relationship that they are going to have with foreign powers, particularly capitalist countries, you discover that they are systematically put at a disadvantage, and this disadvantage that they are put at will manifest in a way in which elite of these countries will be doing more of the bidding of these foreign powers than the bidding of their own local people. And once this continues to happen, there is no day that democracy will actually yield the desired result for the people in Africa.
Okay, when you say new colonialism, could you please use
neo-colonialism?
Neo. All right, thank you very much for that clarification. But at the end of the day, Dr. Shatta Mbaia, we have bodies like the ECOWAS. Would you say it has really done enough in a bid to address some of these issues rocking the African continent?
Well, you see, that is one of the issues which I did not touch on when I was making my commentary earlier. The decision by the renegade countries in West Africa to actually pull out of ECOWAS is not unconnected to the belief that members of ECOWAS, or rather the leadership of ECOWAS, has actually become a front for France, United States, and other Western countries. And if that is the case, it means ECOWAS has more of the interest of these countries rather than the interest of its member states.
But do you think that is the case?
Well, it's not clear as to whether that is the case or not. But I can tell you that if you look at Nigeria today, if you look at the leadership in the country, you remember it was under the leadership of the leader of ECOWAS, that is our own President Ahmed Bola Tinubu, that these renegade countries actually decided to pull out of ECOWAS. And if you look at the body language of the President of Nigeria and its relationship with France, we discover that to some extent we could say that there is a fruitful relationship between the President of Nigeria and that of France. And coincidentally, he happens to be the chair of ECOWAS. In Nigeria today, there has been rumors that the relationship between the government and France is actually reaching milestones that have never been seen before in the history of this country. And considering the fact that Nigeria is the giant of Africa, and in the past, Nigeria used to be one of the countries that have actually put off advances by France to actually extend its tentacles into Nigeria. But then today we are seeing newfound relationship. We are seeing extension of France into the economy of Nigeria in frontiers that have never been seen before. So when you put all these things together, you come to the conclusion that there are some elements of truth in the claims and allegations of these renegade countries. Unless
but Dr.
and until the leadership of ECOWAS actually prove these renegade countries otherwise.
Dr. Shatambaya, I mean, the undertone attached to the relationship between Nigeria and France, I mean, the undertone has been dismissed and even dispelled by the presidency. And let's not also forget that the president, as a person, you know, being the president of Nigeria, is somewhat different from his position as the ECOWAS chair. So don't you think that it's just a case of maybe blowing things out of context in terms of, you know, Nigeria's relationship with France?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't sincerely think so. Because like I said, we have seen a disposition of a president that is different, that has departed remarkably from various presidents that we have witnessed in this country over a period of time. We could say since the beginning of the Fourth Republic. We've never had in the history of this country, in the history of the Fourth Republic, a president that is too close to France and its interests like we have today in Nigeria. And you could see that although ECOWAS will always come out to say it is ready to actually talk to dialogue with these renegade countries, it is ready to do the needful to make sure that these countries will not finally leave. But in practice, we are not seeing this happening. And this shows clearly that because these countries are against the interests of the United States of America and France, ECOWAS is not really doing what it is supposed to do to actually ensure that it brings this country back into its fold. Because no matter how you look at it, these countries were better off in ECOWAS. They are better off to member states of ECOWAS than the United States of America and France. Whatever benefits that we think as a sub-region we could get from this country, what these countries are likely to benefit or what they are likely to get will outweigh tremendously any form of benefit that will come to us. And they will do everything possible to ensure that the bar of our development remains below expectation. Because once our development is actually thriving, then it means we are more likely to actually sever relations or to manage relations in such a way that it will be to their disadvantage. And that they will never allow to happen.
All right, so is this safe to say that the democracy that is practiced in each of the countries of Africa or nations of Africa is a loyalist democracy that is dependent on these powers? You know,
I did not get that. Is that loyalist democracy?
Okay, I'm just saying, is it safe to say? I'm asking, right? But I'm glad you say you did not say that. Now, let me come from this perspective. Quite a number of Nigerians, and from conversations and interactions that we've had with other African people from other African countries, there seems to be a separation, because the ideals of a democracy, which is government of the people, by the people, and for the people, seems to be lopsided in terms of its operation in Africa. And it's beginning to bring a call to unity, a call to the re-engineering of what the African continent is supposed to stand for. are we indeed independent as Africans? Is Africa indeed independent? Because some would say that we should have created more pallies with other African countries and consolidated our relationships rather than begin to seek pally with the countries outside of Africa and strengthen our own unity first of all. Why am I saying this? Let me draw your attention to the other African platforms that is meant for the African people. We have the AU, the African Union, a continental organization which is aimed at promoting unity, solidarity, cooperation among African states. We have NEPAD, a new partnership for Africa's development. We have APRM. I mean, there are names. Just recently, now today is the last day for Burkina Faso, Mali, and to get back, with Africa. What would you say could be the reason for this fallout? And how can we ameliorate, the situation?
Yes, you see, I agree with you that as a continent we should do more to actually ensure that we leverage on the existence of the numerous platforms that we have created to actually improve our fortunes and to, as a group, actually streamline the nature of our relationship with the outside world. And that has not really happened for certain reasons. Some of these reasons could be domestic while others could be foreign. In the first place, these countries that are benefiting from the existing nature of imbalances, economic imbalances, military imbalances, technological imbalances between the African continent and their own countries will never allow for this relationship to be fruitful. If you look at, for example, when we go back history lane, you discover that the formation of ECOWAS as a sub-regional platform met with a lot of obstacles, and one of the major obstacles that was on the way on the formation of ECOWAS was the what do they call it? The colonial barrier, the colonial barrier between countries in West Africa that were colonized by France and those that were colonized by England. Mm-hmm. And France actually did everything possible to ensure that the ECOWAS as a platform do not actually come to fore. And this is not unconnected to the fact that they felt that Nigeria could actually influence, exercise overwhelming influence over the former colonies that were colonized by France. And this is just a typical example of one out of many of the attempts by foreign powers to actually ensure that the African continent do not actually weather the storm and actually improve on the fortunes of its prospects and development. Just recently, I think some 4 or 5 years ago, when the president of the African Development Bank, what's his name now? This Nigerian former Minister of Agriculture, wanted to actually move for a second bid of his chairmanship at the African Development Bank. There is nothing that the United States did not do. They came up with allegations that were false to actually ensure that he did not maintain that position that he held, that he's still holding at the moment, although those attempts did not actually yield the desired result for them, because they felt his leadership was a quality one. He was driving the African Development Bank towards directions that will actually impact positively on the African continent. There are many of such attempts that have been in history that have been made by some of these foreign powers to actually ensure that these platforms will not actually work in a way that will actually impact positively on the relationship between among countries in Africa, because they know the key to actually becoming independent, to actually enjoy real independence, as you referred to, was to actually promote and achieve unity between and among countries in Africa. And therefore, these countries will never allow for this to happen. And until and unless Africans actually do this, Africans actually work towards achieving this objective of promoting their unity, I don't think we will ever experience any form of development. And then you could see they are still present. Even platforms that have failed to actually work over the years. Platforms like ECOWAS, which used to be one of the most successful examples of international integration within the West African continent. These foreign powers are doing everything possible to ensure that it is actually neutralized and broken down to tatter. Okay. And this explains why they are holding strong on the leadership of ECOWAS. They are holding strong on the remaining members of ECOWAS to actually ensure that these renegade countries are allowed to actually go. Okay. Once there is unity within the West African sub-region, it means the efficacy of ECOWAS will be compromised. And once that happens, they could easily penetrate these countries individually and continue to achieve their economic interest.
Okay, Dr. Chatham Baya, before we put, a pause to your thoughts, I think a yes or no response would do. Would you say democracy has been more of a curse as opposed to a blessing to all of us in Africa? A yes or no would do.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Would you say that democracy, the practice of democracy in Africa, has brought about some sort of, a blessing or a curse? Yes or no would do.
No, it is a curse.
Okay.
It is a curse.
All right then. Thank you very much, Dr. Chatham Baya. Yeah. We just have to, have you hold your thoughts, but you can monitor the conversation because a link to join the conversation across YouTube and Facebook has been sent to you, but not to your mailbox this time, to your WhatsApp, so you can just monitor the conversation. We'll have family members calling to share their thoughts, and we'll link up with you later so you can react to these submissions, to these observations, and of course, make your submission.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Well, we open the phone lines now. Family members already coming, through 0907 353 0044. That's the number. The other number would be 0908 766 8888. And the WhatsApp portal number is
0909-705-4450.
Right.
And please, when you call in to share your thoughts, please stay civil, avoid the use of vulgar language.
Yeah.
And, it's really out of place now for us to tell you to maintain 2 minutes
decorum.
or less.
Yeah, 2 minutes or less.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You can use your discretion.
Sure.
To do that. Let's hear from this person. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, my sister. Good morning.
Good morning, Elder.
Good morning.
My regard to you people.
Regards to you too. Right.
Abubakar, Chanya, my junior sister, and the other, Salati, and the other people.
Elder, you should tell us your name and where you're calling from. You should tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Kuba.
All right.
My name.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
You see, let us start from the corruption. When good Lord Jonathan say corruption is not a stealing, people don't understand it. You see, the way we form our political party in Nigeria make corruption to see, and then there's no way to remove it. Now, another join your party with you as a doer. And they are going to borrow about 100 million from banks to sponsor that bank, sponsor that party. And then you happen to win as a doer. You have to give another the political appointment, the place where I can get my money. And then the money you are going to allocate to that department, I have to divert it and pay my debt. That's the reason of corruption in Nigeria. So all the people where you contribute money to a party, you have to give the appointment. If the manager is not coming directly, I will send somebody to represent me there. And then all the money you are going to allocate to that means I have to divide that money to 4 places. 3, I will carry it to go and pay my debt. If not, your bank will take my property. That's the first year, second year. The third year, I have to lose money to sponsor the party again. The 4th year, that's the year of campaign. All the money you are bringing to me, I have to divert it, bring the rest to party, and take the rest to campaign, and then my own gain. That's why you see corruption in political party in Nigeria can never do things. And they talk about of ECOWAS. You see, our relationship with French, I don't know whether we read the history of French. French make Nigeria make Cameroon to take over Bakassi. When we send our force to that place, Cameroon bring their force and drove our force out. And then that's why we go to World Cup. And then when we go to World Cup, what the French do? We carry the president of Cameroon. He spent almost 6 months in French there, sitting down there. French is lobbying for him through all the world court to win the case. French make us to lose a Bakassi. Now our president have good, according to him, good relationship with them. You see, what the head of state of Niger said last time, that's a true there. Because I'm a security expert. When any country has a special force, and then they send a special force to any country, the country will deny, say there is nothing on that. And then even the country where you send them to that place, they will deny.
Okay.
That's what the president of Niger is saying that day. That having that relationship with their friends is going to destroy this country more.
Okay.
And then that's why this boy they walk out from ECWA. They say they are not coming back.
All right.
Thank you very much. God bless Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elder, for your contribution right there. The numbers
0907 353 0044 is the number to call. The other number is 0908 766 8888. And the WhatsApp portal number is 0909 705 4450. Spread the wings across social media platforms at Eagles FM Abuja. YouTube and Facebook particularly allows for you to have an audio-visual radio experience, that you can count on. And on other, social media account platforms, you just know that content is on there. Get on there and engage, and let's, have that worthy conversation. I mean, quite a lot has been said. And more is yet to be said. I mean, we've seen where the likes of Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali have left. I mean, I'd like to, really look at Burkina Faso. Right. Burkina Faso, in the space of how many months now, years now? I don't know. I can't really put that together. But yeah, this man, who happens to be a military person, took over the power from coup and everything. The transformation that has happened in Burkina Faso within the space of time that he has been at the helms of affairs is shocking. Very shocking. And it makes one begin to think what the political pathfinders in that country have been doing over time, in terms of building infrastructure, in terms of looking into the electricity, the power, in terms of the power sector, in terms of the health sector. The man has been everywhere. And we are not even talking about agriculture yet. In terms of agriculture, he has done so much than any of his predecessor, has ever done. His name is Captain Ibrahim Traore. That's his name. He has done so much, and it makes us begin to also think to ourselves that, please, what exactly do these platforms that are meant for Africa's unity, what do they really talk about? Whenever they come together, what assessment are they really assessing? We would expect that each country would come up and say, okay, we've been able to fix this and this, so far, which has been able to project us as a country where each and every one of you can find as a destination hub. And we would also like to share our innovation with maybe for example with Ghana, with South Africa, so that we can also share technology, technical know-how, grow ourselves. What do they really talk about? Or is it a jamboree type of tea setting where everybody sips tea and coffee and they laugh, and then monies are shared, and everybody says to your tent, "Oh Israel"? We don't know, right? So these countries are beginning to show, just as the guy said, the hold the ECOWAS has as an economic community of West Africa, states, is beginning to fall apart. I mean, today is the deadline, and these countries are still deciding not to join the ECOWAS. They say no, we'll stay on our own. We will, if we must die, we die, but we are still here.
Well, absolutely. When you take a look at some of the reasons given by these, military hunters across Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, they will tell you that there are certain anomalies, or how will I put it now? There are certain activities or developments that actually contradict the essence of true democracy,
right?
Not just in these countries, but in Africa. And of course, you can actually trace that from insecurity now to maybe underdevelopment and some sort of corruption. So to go back to the question you asked earlier,
right.
concerning these bodies, these platforms, that are saddled with the responsibility of ensuring that Africa, remained and stays united, right, as a continent. One will be the fact that maybe there is too much concentration on unity as opposed to dealing decisively with what the real issues are.
Right.
We talk about corruption.
Yeah.
What exactly is the reason for this trend of corruption, across countries in Africa? How can it really be, dealt with? How can it be, tackled in such a way that it would be eradicated? Maybe not completely eradicated.
Maybe not completely,
but to be reduced. Such
ameliorated.
that people can enjoy the dividends of democracy. A little wonder the guest said that democracy is brought more than, it's more of a curse as opposed to a blessing to us in Africa. But you can actually share your thought with us. I mean, if you have reservations with the submissions of our guests, please call in and share with us what your thoughts are really. And of course, on the show this morning, we are, examining factors responsible for democratic failure in Africa, Nigeria, and by extension Africa. How solid, all right, how fortified are the democratic institutions that we have, not just in Nigeria but Africa at large? Let's quickly.
Some will still, come from the place of charity begins at home.
Right.
How much of the democracy are you practicing in your country that will give you the effrontery to address other African nations to say